Okay, so systemic racism is basically um, it talks about how there's a wealth gap. It talks about differences in employment, housing, discrimination, government surveillance, incarceration, drug arrests, immigration arrests, infant mortality. So it's actually a thing, and it's very present in today's society. And the way that it can affect the criminal justice system and how it affects Black and Latino immigrants is it's a gateway for the government and police to incarcerate and unlawfully search people based on the color of their skin and and their culture. So that's kind of how it affects it. There's a lot more going into that. It talks about how when if you were to arrest someone at the border, take them over here, you give them a right to trial, you give them a right to an attorney and a lawyer, but the state has to provide the attorney and the lawyer, so it's could be bad, could be good. It could most of the time it's pretty bad though, and it usually works towards the favor of the government who's in charge, and basically incarcerates people for the wrong things and for the wrong reasons, and it really wastes our tax money, wastes their time, and a lot of people are just coming over here for a better way of life, so it's not very productive. And then uh, so I'm going to explain how in chapter 3 we learned about how any discourse about immigration has the subtext of a minority incorporation into society. Um, the way immigration policy creates and reproduces racial inequality is the immigration policy is strictly meant to it's strictly made to only allow people who are completely certified and completely like got the paperwork, got everything ready, and are ready to come in. But if someone wants to just apply for asylum at the border, most of the time it's not going to work, and it basically creates racial inequality because it's not in America's favor, which is kind of stupid because it would benefit us and it would kind of like uplift the whole image of America being a melting pot. But apparently we don't do that anymore, I guess. But it did talk about how in the book it talked about how there was like 30,000 men, women, and children who are behind bars, which is an astounding number, strictly because they want to come into the country, and that's not right, and it's not okay. But that's basically how our immigration policy works. It's how it has been working, and especially with the new administration and the White House, that's definitely how it's going to continue working, unfortunately. And then for chapter 4, uh, so they talked about how African American this talks about how African American athletes' behavior is depicted differently than her or his white counterpart who are engaged in the same behavior. One of these is it would be an example of enlightened racism, which we learned about in the chapter. I forget what page that is, but they did a whole thing on it, and it's basically it talks about how well, just as an example, let's say so Richard Sherman was a cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks. He made this great play to send them into the Super Bowl and was really fired up about it, and just kind of started going off. You know, you could tell it was in the heat of the moment. He was excited. He was pumped up, and just came off as kind of loud and just kind of like not really arrogant, but more like in your face, which is okay because that's the sport, that's football. But he got a lot of backlash for that and was seen as someone who's not right, someone who takes it way too far. But then you have someone like Tom Brady, he is white and he's a quarterback and he plays for the New England Patriots. And whenever he gets fired up or amped up or is screaming and stuff, then it's seen as he's a hardworking person and he's a competitor and he's got the drive, he's got the energy. But when someone else does that of a different skin tone, then it's seen as aggressive and not very sportsmanlike, and that's just not true. But yeah, but it definitely can change the shape of the U.S. racial order because a lot of people who have social media or even watch Sports Center see them bash on Richard Sherman and then enlighten Tom Brady for basically doing the same thing. So it it can definitely change people's minds based on just the amount of times they use social media and how many times they see that. But and then for describing a biracial buddy character played by Asian men in American film and television would definitely have to be um, the guy from the Karate Kid when he's like training him, and he doesn't talk much, he doesn't have a lot of quick movements, he just kind of sits there and watches. That would be racist because it's basically it is the biracial buddy. It's the person who's like all knowing, all wise, and it is definitely basically the same as the wise man character played by Native American men, who they're older. They've gone through everything that this person's going through, and they know everything about it. And they're quiet. They're kind of in tune with their surroundings. They don't really do anything. They just sit there and talk. But yeah, so you can definitely see how there's a connection there between those two. But yeah,